This is Groundeffected. My name is In the words of the notorious B.I.G., never let them know your next move. Oh yeah, no intro. Let's just do it. This video was sponsored by Tanuki Figures, and let me tell you, these dudes have an absolutely freaking ridiculously epic catalog of models. If you are interested in 3D printing or painting, even in the slightest, this is definitely one of those Patreons that you 1059% need to go and check out. If you're looking for that model grade, that lovely premium feel, then this is one of those Patreons for you. And if you go in the description, there will be a link for them, and also there will be a little code. If you use that code, that will give you a discount on the models that I've painted in all my videos of Tanukis, and you'll get them for cheaper, which is a great price. Now, of course, it has to be said that Patreon's not the only place. You can go pretty much on all of they've got Gumroad and Cults. They got all the things. Go, please, don't be a you just go buy the model. And I realize that most of you are normal and can figure this out, but for those of you who cannot, the link is in the description. That's the little thing down below the video. And of course, you don't have to subscribe, but subscribing is your best bang for your buck. Otherwise, you can buy the model separately. You don't always have to subscribe. There is separate places. I don't feel like I have to explain this because the amount of times I get told, I wish I could buy it separate. You can. Use your eyes and you will figure it out. Oh, you thought I was joking when I said no intro. Well, I wasn't. And here we are. I've already primed the parts. I've taken them out the printer. They've been cleaned, cured, dried, the whole shebang doodle. They are ready to paint, and so thus forth I'm just going to paint them, because as I said in the beginning, you should never let them know your next move, and my next move was to skip the whole intro. We're in here, deep as you can get. Just ask your mum. Anyway, this is a pretty simple model, and I'm pretty glad to be painting this one, because even though I said in December that I was not going to have time to make an entire Sinister Six, it seems that I am going to be making an entire Sinister Six at some point. Now I want to quickly tell you about my paints. People ask often in the comments, what are you mixing it with? That is just water. I will tell you a little trick though. I'm using bottled water in that little bottle that I have got, which has obviously been decanted from a larger bottle into the smaller bottle. But if you use tap water, depending where you live, it may be a little bit hard, or it may be, I mean, that sounds weird to talk about water as hard, but certain waters have different things and chemicals and stuff inside of them, and the water in England, I can tell you straight up, if you leave it in a pot, like for example your wet palette, it starts to smell like someone's backside after a couple of weeks. So I can say for sure there is something weird going on in that water, and I do not trust that in the water that I use to mix in my paints. And this is another thing, speaking of paints, you can buy airbrush paints, but personally I don't think that it's worth it, because it's basically just the normal paints but mixed with some water and obviously mediums and all the rest of it. Now I want to quickly talk about the types of paint I'm using here, and in this case I'm using a contrast paint to paint the green on this model. Over here I quickly placed that bottom portion of the shin onto the top portion of the thigh so that I could make sure I matched up where the highlight was. That's why you saw me paint it white again, because the highlight was incredibly incorrect. Now, because I had put a zenithal down, or a volumetric highlight, you can already see there is some nice shadows and some highlights already just by putting the contrast paint over the top of that volumetric highlight, which is obviously black and white. But in order to reinforce those, I'll use a yellower, brighter green in the highlights, and I'm going to use a blue shade in the shadowed areas, funnily enough, of this model. And that is because this is going to create a massive contrast between the nice warm colors on the top portion of the model, the brightest color, and the cool colors in the shadows, making your eye really tricked into seeing a lot more depth than what actually is there. I covered the entire suit with a semi-gloss clear. You'll find out why later, but for now just imagine me painting this, because I forgot to record that, so like that. The next step is then to do the skin tones, and you might be asking, where's the pinkle? Well, I didn't need any pinkle for this. The skin tones in here are so minuscule. It's not like we need so much range of color and detail in the skin tones on this model. So I'm just going to use literally red over the top, where I would put pinkle and then red, and it's just cutting out one step. maybe even 2 steps, and it kind of saves me a whole lot of time. I then work my way up with my brightest colors, as I would normally do with any other skin tones that I do, and in this case, I'm not going to be using Orcish Dermis. I'm just going to use a Gilliman Flesh to spray into the shadowed areas to make it look a little bit more manly, shall we say. Now, taking some of that satin varnish and spraying that over the skin tones again, for reasons we will get to them in a minute. I'm now going to start working on the base of this model, and for some reason, I think I probably recorded more working on the base for the model than I did for the rest of the model, actually. But to be fair, he is only like 3 colors, which is skin tone, green, yellow, black, a little bit of white. So yeah, he's very simple, and I put a lot more effort into the base, obviously, or at least I had to, because there was a lot more colors on the base. Now that I look at it, there isn't that many more colors. I don't understand. Anyway, let's just carry on with this. What I did was I painted, obviously, I set myself up for the mud or the dirt portion of the base, and I then painted, obviously, not the dirt portions, which is this like concrete section, and what you may notice is I put some brown in there, and that is because it gives a very nice, you can literally see it, it gives a very nice color. And again, I've used a green over the top of that, not gray, because we have this gray object on the right of it, which is the little pole thing, that electrical box thing, and so I purposefully used a darkish green for the first sort of setup of the concrete, rather than using the bluey one that I would normally use. And also, by the way, I didn't actually do any shades over the top of this base, which I only realized that now, and I don't hate it. So I might do more like this in the future. I don't know. I'm not opposed to changing the style or just changing things that I feel like work best for me over time. But what I'm hoping that you are noticing is that I use different tones and different colors for each portion of this base to make sure that the elements were fully separated from each other. So the green of the concrete versus the blue tone underneath of the pole, you can clearly see, even though I'm using the exact same deck tan to highlight both of those objects, they look like 2 completely different colors. So that, I just hope you take that out of this. Anyway, I'm going to move on to doing the actual electrical box, and this is just dry brushed with a dark silver because it needs to look somewhat metallic, I guess. I don't really know if an electrical box should be metallic. I think actually that's probably the exact opposite of what you want an electrical box to be, but it doesn't matter. I painted mine in metallic colors because that's what I did, and here we are, and I have no choice at this point now. After I've done all of the dry brushing of that, I needed to come back to the last thing on this base, and that is these electrical cables. Now, of course, you can paint them a couple of different colors. In my case, though, I decided that black was probably the most natural color to paint these things, mainly because this particular color covers everything, no matter what it is, and this was a lot less effort than painting them red, for example, because then I would have had to paint them a light color and then paint the red, and who has got the time to do things like that? I most certainly don't, so I decided to go with black. Now, of course, black on their own is not going to look the greatest, so you need to give it a little bit more je ne sais quoi, as they say. So I'm going to take this bronze green, which is the same green that I used on the concrete, and I'm going to thin that down about 50-50 with water and spray that on some of the high spots on the cables, because it will make it look like they have a little bit more depth to them. I'm then going to put all these parts together on the base, and I'm pretty much almost done with it, except for this one last cable that kind of goes around the whole front of the base, and it's exactly the same process that I did for this cable as I did for all of the other cables, except for some reason I showed you a lot more of painting this one than the others. Now let's just move on quickly to painting some of the highlighted areas on the sparky things. Now you might be questioning me about why I printed these in solid resin, when the natural reaction would be to probably print them in a transparent resin and paint them with a nice tint of yellow and make them look really cool like that. But I didn't want to do that. There is actually a couple reasons for this. Number one, don't have very much clear or transparent resin at the moment, but that's not really the main reason. The main reason is his leg. On his leg, there is a bunch of this electricity coming out of his leg and attached to his suit as well, and which meant that I would have had to mask that resin. And we all know my feelings about masking, but trust me, I'm not going to get away with doing this model without masking. Although, there is a way to do it, but it's just not going to happen in this video. I'm going to now start masking, because, of course, That's my favorite bloody thing to do, and I have no choice in this case but to mask out these eyes. And yes, I could have used Silly Putty for this, but personally I think that the masking is going to work a little bit better. In a previous video I used this mask, this liquid mask before, and it destroyed all of my colors, and this was definitely because I did not protect those colors. I just trusted that I could paint straight over the top of my freshly painted model, which was a dumb thing to do, I know that, but that is the reason why I put that transparent clear over the top, the semi-gloss that I put on earlier, is because that is protecting my paint in this case, and that's the only way to do it. I then proceeded to paint obviously the exact same colors I needed the mask to be, which is the nice light bright yellow, and then using Eandon yellow to give it some shadow. Now you may also be wondering, how come normally people say you must paint pink and then paint the yellow over the top? Well, it's not the case. Eandon yellow will do this for you. I'm just quickly showing you there a section on the model, and this is one of the main reasons why I hate masking, because no matter what, I always have to work on the edges of the masking. It doesn't matter when or how, the masking won't be perfectly straight, or it might be pull off some of the previous paint, or it always does something no matter what. And so this is the reason why I would rather just paint it like this, where I'm just carefully edging around the edge, and then I'll use my airbrush and just add some highlights into it if I needed to. But the reality is this model, trust me, I argued with myself whether I was going to mask it or just paint it, which one would take me less time, and I figured they probably take about the same amount of time on this model. Pretty similarly close enough that I might just get away with masking and just fixing up the edges. Here you can see the exact technique I would do if I didn't mask anything. I would literally just turn my pressure of my airbrush down and carefully paint the highlights over that color that I'd painted in the area that I should have masked in the first place. Now, speaking of masking, we're going to use a different type of masking this time, and this is tape. This is the classic kind of masking, and this is the one that I don't know if I like this one more or less than the other one, to be fair. They all have a different place and a different reason to be using them. They're not all equal, not all masks are equal, and this is just the way that I know how to do this. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just know that I need to mask this, and so my thought was I will put the tape over the top, pressing down with my thumbnail into the crevasses to find where they are, and then just follow it with a very brand new sharp tool, because if it's not sharp, you're gonna have a very sad time. Trust me, you don't want to be trying to cut masking tape with a not sharp blade. You need the sharpest one, which is the newest one. I then press very tightly over all of that masking and make absolutely sure it is down, even though I know some part is probably not fully down. It just make sure it's down as much as you can. You will definitely make mistakes here, but you can come back and fix it again later. Not always though, and this one was a lucky one because I could use that green Citadel paint to fix up any of the overspray or anything that didn't fully get masked properly. I could fix it up, but in some cases you can't. I like particularly skin tones and things like that, so this one was a lucky one, and that's the only reason why I actually chose to go with doing it this way, was because I knew that using that contrast paint to come back and clean up the edges later, it would work. In other instances where it wouldn't work, I would 100% not choose to do this method, and I would just paint it by hand. Yeah, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. There is a little bit of overspray, there is a little bit of masking errors. It's just, with the time that I have to do these models, I don't have time to be so precise and actually put in hours into masking. And I know that there are people who can do this. I know some people personally who are incredible masters at masking, but I'm not one of these people. And for me, painting is about the time. I need to get this thing done in time to an extremely high level, at least the highest that I can do in that time frame that I have. And so these are the techniques that I use to do this. Now I can put all the parts on the legs together and then lean it onto its model placement before moving on to painting that lower leg piece that I was a little bit worried about with the masking before. And as you can clearly tell, masking this would have been, honestly, if I had to have masked this, I think that's when I quit doing everything I do, because I'm not doing that. There's absolutely no chance in hell am I masking that thing. Yes, I could have probably used liquid mask. Do I want to? No. And so thus forth, this is why I printed this in a solid color, meaning that I could not have left anything over to the imagination, and I just literally painted it with a deck tan to make sure it was white, and then put that nice light yellow over the top and called it done, because ain't nobody got time to mask that kind of a leg. I obviously put that leg together and then rested it in its place, and now it stands on the model while I'm preparing this torso section, which again was the same thing. I don't feel like I need to show you much more of that masking, because I did the exact same thing I did on the leg, but except for this time it's the torso. And now, of course, obviously I need to paint it white, and I will just say, when you do these layers, do them slowly. I painted that white and I moved away, and then I dried it with my wife's stolen hairdryer. That makes it sound like my wife stole it, but I stole it from her anyway. And I dried in between each layers, making sure it is fully dry. Trust me, with a mask, you want to make sure stuff is extremely dry. You do not want a wet coat, because a wet coat will leak underneath the masking, and that just brings in even more problems. That is another reason why I do not enjoy masking. Here you can see more of the problems, and here you can see me fixing more of the problems, of course, because that's all you need to do. And like I said, luckily it works on this model. In fact, it helps to give a really nice crispy edge to that nice suit jagged line that goes through the middle. I was really stressing about this one. Genuinely, I was stressing about it because I knew that it involved masking and I had no options. The next step, obviously, after the stress of all the masking is done, is to figure out the puzzle of putting all these bits together, because there are loads of little electrical bits that need to be stuck onto the model, and it was exciting trying to figure out where they go. But once you kind of got it down, it goes together pretty well and easy. I mean, as easy as one can put together a jigsaw puzzle of electrical pieces. I used Magos purple in the eyes and also in the lips, and then I used Gilliman Flesh to paint this guy's actual lips. And when I said in the lips earlier, what I meant was in his teeth, and so we'll just carry on and pretend like I said teeth. Speaking of teeth, I'm going to quickly use deck tan to paint them, because deck tan is not white. It is like a greenish kind of white. It is browny. It's not white. Do not use white to paint teeth, because otherwise it's going to look like he's gone and got turkey teeth, and it will look weird, and you don't want it to look weird. And so that's my tip for you for teeth. Also, leave a little gap in between each tooth to make them individual teeth. It makes them look a little bit more realistic. The gap too big looks funny, a little bit gummy. So you see what I'm saying? The small gap, not so gummy, maybe a little bit too white. It's up to you how you want to paint them. But for the eyes, I used cream white because this was brighter than the teeth, and of course he has electricity going through him, so we want something like that. And obviously now I can put the face on the head and then call this one done. Once again, we have made it to the end of yet another Groundeffected video, and I want to obviously say all of my thank yous right meow. This is the time where you should take this video and share it with your granny or your auntie, even your mom, your dog, whoever it is, but share the video, because obviously the more views I get, the more views I'll have, or something like that. Thank you very much to Tanuki for sponsoring this video, and also thank you so much to my Patreons. If you are interested in a palette where I show you every single color that I use to paint this model, I showed it to you in the video anyway, but it's a little bit of a list, and it's got a picture, and it's all fancy. You can tick them off with what you got. We have that available over on our Patreon. We also have some behind the scenes stuff, and we also have our own models if you're interested in that. So go check that out in the description. That will be right underneath Tanuki's link. Go click on Tanuki's link first, then click on mine, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you wash your hands afterwards. And this is the part of the video where I get to tell you the best thing, and that is, if you didn't like anything you saw in this video, I don't care, and you're more than welcome to f*** off.